Today we'll talk about the 4 different levels of Claude Code skills and understand which level is best for what scenario. We'll also go through a live demo showing how a main agent plus sub-agents approach in combination with a plugin called Agent Flow can build skills that are extremely reliable and produce consistent, high-quality outputs. So this is the basic and default method of building a skill. So typically you have a main agent that invokes a skill. That skill reads from a skill MD, which contains all the general instructions, the detailed step-by-step instructions, as well as do's and don't do's and some error handling. Those kind of steps are really good for low-effort tasks, and they're also really easy to maintain because you basically just have one document, the one skill MD. But they're not very suitable for complex tasks. So as soon as the task becomes too big, then they start making mistakes. So you can imagine this is like baking a cake and you have one big instruction document that contains everything from going to the supermarket, buying the ingredients, then preparing the kitchen, then preparing the ingredients. Like all of this is basically in one single document. This is the second method of using a skill. So here you still have a main agent, but this main agent uses an orchestration skill. And that skill reads from an orchestration skill MD, which still has the general instructions. But then instead of having the detailed step-by-step instructions in that OS skill MD, it just has the general architecture as well as the inline versus skill invocation part, do's and don't do's and error handling. So it still basically does, the main agent still does everything itself, but the orchestrating skill now divides the work into different parts. So the orchestrating skills first calls skill A, let's say, and that particular skill has all the detailed step-by-step instructions. Then it calls skill B, then C. And this can either happen in parallel or sequentially, depending on how you set it up. Those kind of skills are really good for kind of medium effort tasks. They also have a medium level of maintenance because now you do have the initial OS skill MD as well as all the separate normal skill MDs. So obviously you have a high number of documents. The problem here is the main agent can just get overloaded with context, and then there is a risk of inaccuracy depending on how many skills you're invoking in one go. So here you can imagine you now, instead of just having one list, you have specific lists for every part of baking this cake. So let's say the first one is how to get the ingredients. So it's let's make sure we have money, go to this particular supermarket, buy those particular ingredients from those particular brands, then go home, store it in the kitchen. You basically just break up the skill into different parts. This is the third way of using a skill. So here you still have the main agent that calls an OS skill, and that OS skill MD still has the general instructions and the architecture, but this time you have inline versus sub-agent invocation. So the main agent doesn't actually directly call another skill except for the initial OS skill. Instead, it now calls sub-agents, and those sub-agents basically read from a sub-agent's prompt MD. So instead of having the main agent to prompt the sub-agent freely, it basically knows exactly, okay, for this particular sub-agent that will invoke this particular skill, I need to use this particular sub-agent prompt. So that basically means there's very little room for error. So once the sub-agent is invoked, it then calls the particular skill, and that skill still reads from their regular skill MD and then performs the different steps. And then once the task is given to the sub-agent and then once it's done, it just sends the final outcome back to the main agent. So the main agent doesn't necessarily know how it got there, but it just knows what it did. And that basically means this kind of setup is really good for more kind of high effort or complex tasks, because you have multiple context windows. So you have the context window of the main agent, but then also all of the different context windows of the sub agents. So that means the main agent's context window is quite clean and doesn't get overloaded with all of the house of the sub agent tasks. That then means the error rate is much lower, and especially if it's a big task, it also won't skip anything. It will just do everything the way you defined it. The problem here is it is definitely significantly harder to maintain, because you do have the OS skill MD that's just orchestrating everything. Then you have the sub-agent's prompt MD, which contains all of the detailed prompts for all of the sub-agents. And then on top, you have all of the individual skill MDs. So that means the file alignment between all of those different files has to be quite good. So if you make one change in a particular skill, you probably, depending on the change, also might have to update the sub-agent's prompt MD and potentially also the OS skill MD. So that means if we go back to the baking a cake analogy, here you now have the pastry chef, and the pastry chef has, let's say, a delivery guy, which goes to the supermarket and then buys all of the ingredients and just comes back and puts the ingredients into the kitchen. Then you have the pastry chef, which now starts to prepare the kitchen, turns on the oven, and starts, let's say, making the main layer of the cake. And then you have another pastry chef that focuses on the filling, another one on the glazing, and then maybe final one putting it all together. And the main agent is basically just making sure every sub-agent is doing their task properly. So it's not super busy with all of the little details. It just makes sure the big picture is working. And then the last method are agent teams. So here you actually have multiple main agents, and they can basically do it all. They can either invoke a skill to then perform steps. They can call on a sub-agent to call a skill to invoke the steps, or they can just perform the steps directly themselves. Those are really good for audits and reviews, those kind of tasks, and just to kind of discuss different angles. They're not super good if you want a very defined output or have a defined or expected result. So you can imagine here you have, let's say, two French pastry chefs, and one is more traditional and one is super modern. And then they discuss, okay, why don't we use soy milk or, whatever, like let's do some vegan chocolate. And what are the pros? What are the cons? Like, how can we find the best possible cake? So this is what agent teams are really good for. In today's live demo, I'll show you how a workflow that uses the main plus sub-agent method split into 4 parts. So we're basically using 4 main agents sequentially, and roughly 70 sub-agents with around 500 individual prompts to build a fully functional website. And I'm talking a navigation bar, homepage, footer, and all corresponding service, location, pricing, contact, and about pages. The website will have a modern chatbot-based client-facing booking and payment system, as well as a staff-facing dashboard to view all those bookings and payments, as well as a bunch of other things. Since I founded fitness companies in the UK, US, and Switzerland, I decided to rebuild the Equinox website. The website is already pretty nice, and Claude estimated it to cost around $3 million and take 9 months to build. And to be honest, I just love how everyone is talking about those $10,000 websites, like 10,000 here, 10,000 there. It's like every freaking website Claude is building is worth 10K. But where's this 10K coming from? Honestly, I find it really amusing. I guess it's just one of those numbers that Does sound good. Okay, let's get started. You only really need two things. You need to download VS Code, which is an IDE, and you need to then install Agentflow, which is a plugin. Both links are in the description and they're both free to download. So this is the interface of VS Code. So the first thing we will do is just open a folder. I already prepared a Equinox folder, which is just on my desktop, and I only really have two things in here. One folder that has videos, which are specific Equinox videos, which we're going to use on the website, and one is just the links for the London Equinox locations. And then to get Agentflow, you literally just type in Agentflow here in the extensions part of VS Code. You click on this one and then you install it. So once you've done that, you just go to the command palette up here, shorten run commands, and you click Agentflow watch live session. So what we're going to do first now is click on this Claude Code symbol, and then we're going to invoke the orchestration skill. So before we get started, let's just briefly talk about how you build a skill with Claude Code. So typically you just tell Claude what you want, and then Claude makes a plan, builds it for you, and in theory it should all work. But in practice it usually doesn't. So there are three typical scenarios that occur if things go wrong. So the first one is it finds a working alternative. So that's fine because it still works, but at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that it will work every time, so that it will find this alternative solution every time you invoke that skill. And you're also wasting context space because it needs to find this solution first. But in general, that's probably the best way of failure. Then the second one is if it fails silently. So in this particular case, you're just missing data from your output, from your final output, because it just skips a particular step without you knowing. The third method, and that's definitely the worst one, is if it just starts to hallucinate. So instead of just not including certain bits and pieces of data in your final report, it actually makes up data. That's definitely the worst case because you don't necessarily know which parts are real and which ones are hallucinated. And then the way most people fix those skills are just by telling Claude, okay, this didn't work, please fix the skill MD, and then you basically try it again. The problem is, if you do it that way, the skill MD can become really long because it includes a lot of edge cases, a lot of special instructions. And then at some point, whenever you invoke that skill, it might not make that previous error, but then another issue occurs. And then you're in this ever ongoing loop of having to fix different issues. So if we go back to the live demo, let me just show you a couple of features here. So on the left here, you have the orchestration skill workflow overlay. So let me just move this one over here and pull this one down. So in this particular overlay, you can see all the different steps of the orchestration skills. And each step is divided into three parts. So what kind of step it is, typically it's either a discovery step or a skill invocation step. Then again, discovery means it just asks you questions, and you can see here in the main chat window, we are already being asked for the source URL and the conversion goal. So that's a discovery step. Then what actions this particular step should perform, and then very importantly, what outcomes we expect. And because it's divided into those three parts, we have a very good understanding of what this step is actually meant to do. So for now, let's just keep going so I can show you the other features. So let's just use the Equinox URL. And let's say we want to have the conversion goal to be book a session. And there you go. That's done. And now it's going to start working via a sub agent. So let me just quickly unfollow this so we can see exactly what's going on. So to give you a rough breakdown of everything you can see here. So on the left, we have the main agent chat. Okay, this is basically everything you can see here as well. We have that divided into different nodes. We can click on them. We can see the details here, but it's basically just what you can see on the main chat as well. And then, since the main agent invoked a sub-agent, which is here, we can see the details of all of the sub-agents as well. So here, we are now going into step 2, which is a skill invocation. That's why we have this little field here, which then causes another workflow overlay to pop up, which has all of the details of that particular skill. So you can really see that all of the details of the main agent skill, of all of the individual skills, are all shown in a very tidy and neat manner. So it makes it really easy for you to check whether everything has been done and completed properly. Let's zoom in to the sub-agent nodes, and then we can now follow the particular sub-agents. And the way this progress functionality works is we have a special agent just for the OS workflow overlay. So all of the agent responses, so it's all of the stuff like this text here, all of the agent responses are sent to a LLM, Claude Opus 4.6, which then reads those responses and checks, okay, which skill has been completed, which one is active, and which one potentially failed. So if a step has been completed and everything has been done as expected, then it ticks it. And if not, it would actually show it as red. And for the individual skills, the overlay looks a little bit different. So instead of having it split into 3 different sections, we just have the summary of each step. And then instead of just looking at the agent response nodes, since the sub-agents have a more compact context window, since once they're done, then that's it, and the new sub-agent starts fresh, we are looking at all of the individual nodes here, so all of the tools, as well as the agent responses, to see which of those steps have been completed and which ones haven't. So let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay. So the first one here was to confirm the Playwright browser MCP, and I believe it already did that in step 1. That's why it's not ticked off. Since this is not an essential step, I can now tick this off manually. The more important stuff is that it does the screenshots and it extracts the CSS. We can see here that it did that, and now it should be working on the logo. And then we basically want to focus on, okay, what's again the final output? So here we want the brand identity JSON, the brand identity MD, the CSS extraction JSON, as well as the logo. As you can see, there are a couple of different icons here. So you can manually tick off a step, which we did. You can also manually make it mark it as an error, so something went wrong. And then you have 2 more fields. So the first one here basically looks at why did this particular step fail. So if you do have a step, and let's see later on, I'm sure it will happen, a step will fail, then we can click on this and it will basically investigate why the step failed. And then the last one, the question mark, will answer why is this particular step active, hasn't been called yet, or failed. So it's basically just looking at the status of a particular step. Like we could have used it, for example, here on this particular one. It was active, but it didn't tick it off. So we could have asked why it wasn't ticked off. And then this is really useful because, and we'll go through this in detail a little bit later on, instead of just knowing what happened, you can actually apply the changes to the SkillMD directly from here. Which brings us to those little icons here. And you can click on the MD file and then the SkillMD opens up straight away. This is great because we can now edit it either manually if we wanted to, or just look at it, making sure it's all in order. And we have the same for the individual skill, which again has all the detailed instructions of that particular skill. So you can imagine if you had all of those 200 lines, 300 lines, in the main skill MD, in this one here, and that times 20, because, you know, we have here 20 different steps, it would just be a massive document, and for sure it would make a lot of mistakes. Then the second icon here is the JSON. So here, this particular document, you need to display the workflow overlays. So they contain a summary of the actual SkillMD. And we could either edit them directly by typing something in here and then saving it. And then I could click the little refresh button. Am I crazy? Where did I put the step 1 gather input? Oh, sorry. I have to scroll up. Yeah, so up here it is. I was looking at step 3. So we basically refreshed it, or we can also do it the other way around. We can click directly on the overflow and then press enter, save it, and then bam, it automatically saves the JSON file as well. So you can edit it both ways, from the overlay or directly from the file. And then the third one is basically the supporting, any supporting documents. So in this case, we use the subagents prompts MD, particularly for the website, OS Business website skill. And this file just contains all of the different prompts for all of the different steps, as I mentioned in the initial explanation. This way, there's very little room for making errors. The main agent knows exactly how to prompt a particular subagent, which makes this very useful. And again, if you want to change something, you could just do that directly from here. Then the last button here is an alignment button. So you can click this one and it will actually check, is the SkillMD aligned with the workflow steps JSON. And that's really useful because sometimes you make changes in the SkillMD and then you forget to do it in the JSON, or the other way around. And to make sure they are aligned is actually quite important. If there are some minor differences, then it's typically fine. But if it would say unaligned or not aligned, I'm actually not sure what it would say if it's not, then you would have to look into it to make sure that it is aligned. And to do that, you could then directly click on this edit pen. So let's just, for example, use use the edit pen here. Although this step hasn't failed, and actually this icon specifically has the task to look at stuff that failed. So it will probably now not make something up, but find different reasons why this step might have failed. So once this is loaded, yeah, there you go. Once that's done, it gives us a detailed explanation why this might have failed, as well as the suggested edits. And then the good thing is you can actually talk to it back and forth, like, oh, I don't think this is correct, or can you look into that? Make sure you consider this. And then once you're happy with it, you can apply the changes. And then it's actually applying the changes directly to the skill MD or the JSON, depending on what's wrong, which is great. It's like such a good feature, in my opinion, because it really makes optimizing the skill MD much easier. One more neat feature that I like is that you can now drag your skills, whichever ones have been completed successfully, like this one. You can drag it into the skill folder down here. And then whenever you want to have a look at it, you could just take it out again, but just to keep things nice and tidy, you can drag it in here. This one as well, the scraper has been completed perfectly. Everything has been ticked off. So we can drag the skill in here as well. And then it's just nice and tidy. And whenever we do want to have a look at it again, we could just drag it out. Let me now show you a couple of more features. So now this particular follow one, I already showed you how it actually follows the nodes, right? And that's split between the main agent and the sub agents. And then we can also follow the workflows. So as of now, we are following both. But just to show you what happens if I, let's say, untick the main agent one and then click on it, it basically moves to whatever top active step there is. So if all of the previous steps have been completed successfully, it will move automatically to the most recent active step. And that's basically the same for the sub-agent skill MD, sub-agent workflow overlay. So if I, let's say, make this a little bit smaller and click on it, then bam, it will move down as well. Of course, if there's nothing to scroll, if you have it in full size, then, nothing happens. But this can be really useful if you, let's say, want to minimize those windows and just see more of the screen, and that way you can make sure that you always have a look at whatever active step there is. One feature I didn't show you yet because I was kind of hoping that one of the steps wouldn't complete perfectly, and that's the little pin here. So whenever a step doesn't complete perfectly, because let's say it has a step still is active, even though the, let's say, final step has been ticked off, or it even failed a particular part of the skill, then you can pin that skill, and then at the very end, okay, let me have a detailed look at those skills and work on them and improve them. And if we, let's say, want to be a little bit less technical and we're only interested in not the tools, not the decisions, not the skills, not the API or deploy nodes, we only want to see the agent responses and what documents it read and which documents it wrote. And by the way, there's also a edit node which just hasn't been used yet. That's why it doesn't appear or hasn't appeared yet. And there's also a delete node. Okay, so the last step just completed, which basically checked whether all of the deliverables have been created successfully. And now we're basically ready to have a look at the local hosted version of the website. Keep in mind, this is still the first draft, so I'm sure there will be a couple of things we'll have to improve, but I'm pretty certain that we are 95% there. But yeah, let's check. Localhost the website. So I'm gonna open it together with you. I haven't looked at this before, just because I want you to see that I'm not, in the background now making it nicer. Like, this was one orchestrating skill that did all of this. And hopefully you can see the value in having such a setup, because you can really get a lot done. And I don't know how many tokens, to be honest, this particular skill uses, probably quite a lot. But, the traditional setup of just creating a home page is a little bit basic, right? Like, if you're creating a page for a client or for someone, or even for yourself, you want the full setup. Keep in mind, this is just the first out of 4 orchestrating skills. So the second one specifically integrates the payment and booking chatbot, and the third one, the dashboard. So as of now, we should have the full website, excluding a fully working booking and payment system and dashboard. So let's have a look. Okay, there it is. And let's now have a look at the website. Great. Good start. So sometimes it just has to restart the localhost server, and then it should work. Okay. So as you can see, it complies already with the EU regulations to have this little pop-up window. It still hasn't, I believe, updated the navigation bar properly yet. Well, we'll have a look at that in a sec. This looks all good. This one looks good as well. Here we're using another video. Nice. I mean, here, this is just some, stock image, so we can definitely exchange that. We have the actual map. So this is just not, made up one. This is the actual one for the Equinox Kensington studio, which is good. We've got FAQs. Nice. 3 testimonials, and then a call to action. And then the footer, yeah, the footer looks good as well. It's all already fitted to Equinox. So I believe the navigation points we should see up here are personal training, group classes, the spa, instead of home and services. So let's... Oh, I think I'm seeing that one thing is wrong as well. So this logo here, when it's on a dark background, it should be white. And when it's on a light background, it should be dark. So it's the wrong way around. But that's fine. That's just one prompt. So I believe if we click here on services, okay, so that already works. Okay, so that's the personal training page, which I think looks pretty nice as well. We have the full program stack, how your program is built, and the different tiers. That looks good. So let's just actually have a look at group classes as well. Here there's 6 different classes. Actually, there are even more. But as you can see, it's all fully customized. Anything that was there before was removed, like any images, and the pricing as well was done properly. So that's all good. Let's have a look at the spa as well. Obviously the videos are, just chosen randomly. For sure we could, use a more relaxing video for the spa. We can see the different treatments here. And yeah, I suppose there were no prices, but at least it didn't make up any prices, so that's good. And then let's actually have a look at the location page to Club Central London, because remember we just decided to go for 2 and not all 3. So we can see the Kensington one here, images, and then the St. James one. And I'm really glad it doesn't have any stock images here, but just placeholders, because, that's just easy to fill them in. Let's have a look at pricing. Okay, so this is the pricing page. And it shows the 4 different tiers. This could probably be done nice as well in a 2x2 grid rather than... Well, actually, okay, this is here for the personal training and this is for the spa. So I think that's why I divided it like this. But yeah, so it has the correct pricing. And then in the About page, we have a nice Our Story section. We have the 4 different trainers. Again, here also probably a 2x2 grid would be nicer. And then we have a storyline or timeline and more about the clubs. But to be honest, I'm pretty happy with everything. So the only things I want to change is the navigation bar itself and actually the logo within the navigation bar. Everything looks good, but can you please change the navigation bar to show personal training, group classes, the spa, then pricing, locations, and about. And also the second thing, the logo doesn't have the correct color for the correct section. So at the moment, whenever there's a dark section, the logo is dark. And when there's a light section, the logo is light. So just reverse that to make sure the logo is more visible. So let's just shoot this off, and this should probably not take long at all. And yeah, once this is done, we can have another look. Okay, and this literally took 30 seconds. That was super quick. Okay. No. Okay, so the logo got messed up and the spa section is still missing. So let me just prompt the agent again. Are you stupid? Can you see that book a tour is now completely out of the navigation bar? Like, what the hell? Equinox is still black on a dark background and still white on a white background. So just reverse that. I told you this now a million times. Get your shit together. Okay, so I did get a little angry because it just kept picking up. But now you can see the logo is proper white with a dark background. The CTA fits into the bar nicely. So if we scroll down, then yes, it automatically changes to black and then to white whenever there's a dark background or a light background. The last part we could have a look at is the actual booking mechanism. So keep in mind that the second OS business skill would customize this one to Equinox. So if we click on book, then let's say we want to book a session. We are a new user, and let's go for a studio session. So we have a little onboarding here. Let's say male, high energy, boxing, tennis, and cycling. And then based on that, it actually has a look at the database. So currently, again, it's still connected to my business's database. So it recommends those 3 trainers, James, Michael, and myself. So let's have a look at tomorrow. We can see all the different availabilities. 11:30 with myself. Now we can see the packages. So let's just go for a 6-month membership. And because here now I can't just enter my normal email again, because then it would just say, oh, you already have an account. I will quickly just get a 10-minute email and just use that one. One quick note, also notice the favicon is done properly, so that's great. So if we continue, put in my name, and now it will send me a 6-digit code. So this email is usually sent super quickly. There it is. That literally took 10 seconds. I'm gonna copy paste the 6-digit code, verify, and now we can do the checkout. So since this is currently connected to the Stripe sandbox mode, I can just use the normal Stripe test card, which is just this particular card number and any future expiry date and any security code. And let's set this up. And that's it. Now it booked the session. So we can actually now click on account, and we will basically have all the details. The name, the email, I can even add my phone number, add a postcode. Keep in mind, all of this is connected to a Superbase project. And this is something, again, that step 2 will do, is basically copy the entire mechanism and then again customize it to the new business, similar to the website. I can see here the credits. Since my company, we basically, whenever you have a membership, we give you 4 credits per month. And since we already booked one, we basically have 3 left. And this is the membership we just bought. We can see the booking we made, as well as the payment. So if I click on the receipt, we can see the standard Stripe receipts. And again, it's in sandbox mode. And it says E-Pulsive because it's still connected to my company's backend. And then we can also see the preferences, which we just entered during the onboarding stage. And initially, I had 9 different questions, including motivation style, workout intensity, communication style, all of this, until I kind of realized, okay, that might be a bit much. Let's just turn it down to the essential 3 that were required to pick the best trainer. Because at the end of the day, that was the goal, to answer 3 questions and see, okay, which trainer is most suitable based on your answers. You can even, if you go to booking, click on manage, and now you can already click on a particular booking and then cancel or reschedule it. I did notice, like, this is not typically meant to happen, and it's probably because we didn't complete the second OS skill. But yeah, typically this should all be in black. But if we click on cancel booking, then bam, it's done. We go back to account, click on booking, and now it's cancelled. My company has a 24-hour cancellation policy, and since we booked for tomorrow 12:30, which is less than 24 hours from now, this session has been charged. So the number of credits is unchanged. It's still 3 out of the original 4. If we start a new chat and just make another booking, let's say for Friday, 2 days time, since now we already have the credits, we don't have to go through the purchase stage again, and the onboarding stage we also don't have to do again. So that's again now done. If we actually look at this, we should also see the confirmation emails. Yeah, that was the confirmation email of the first one, then it was cancelled. Now this is the confirmation email of the second one. And if we go back to the account, we can see the new booking. Credits have gone down to 2. And if we manage this one now, and by the way, we can also reschedule it, but let's just cancel it again, then you will see that the booking is not charged and the credit has been returned. So basically what I'm trying to say, all of the logic is already in here, and it only has to be now customized to the new company. So probably the first step wouldn't say studio sessions, but it would say personal training, group classes, and the spa. Then the calendar would have to be connected to the actual trainers' calendars, which obviously for now could just be like a test calendar. So basically you can book a session, you can manage a booking, and this is the same as if you were to go through here. Now we don't have any active bookings, but those bookings would basically appear here as well. You can make a payment. Since we bought a membership, again, we weren't prompted to do another payment, but we could. And we can also ask a question. So this is kind of the chatbot component. Now, my company offers EMS training. So I can ask, what is EMS training? And for me, it was really important to get a quick response. And there you go. It gives you the detailed answer of what EMS training is. You can also say, who is Mario? And then we should have the answer. Yeah, the owner of E-Pulsive. Background chemical engineering. That's me. So that already works. Of course, the database it's accessing is the E-Pulsive one, but this is a very, very easy and quick change. And then the last functionality is actually a voice agent, and this one already works as well. And you can book a session, you can cancel a session, make a payment, reschedule. I'll just give you a quick idea.
Thank you for calling E-Pulsive. This is Hersey. How may I help you today?
Hey, I'd like to book a session for tomorrow, 8 p.m.
I'd be happy to help with that. Would you like a studio session at our Belgravia branch or a home session?
A studio session. You get the idea. So you can basically go all the way through to booking a session. It's not super quick yet, but I think that's more just because the technology isn't perfect yet. This uses VAPI, by the way, in combination with N8N. But all the functionality, the base functionality is there, so it just has to be customized. This is pretty much it for today. I will show you how to do the how to invoke the OS Business payment and booking skill next time. I'm going to try to actually do that later this week, so there's not a long gap. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.